Okay, we should be going live here any second now. It's always this weird rush to get everything set, to get all the stream info inputted, make a stream, make a tweet, do all that stuff, and then, hey, you're off and running with the broadcast. I suppose it's kind of like doing a TV show, except for the fact that I have an entire production crew to help out with everything besides hosting. All I need to do is host. Here, I'm the audio guy, I'm the video guy, I'm the IT guy, whatever. I like doing this, so hopefully you enjoy it too. Here to talk, let me turn this down a little bit. Here to talk Sharks and Golden Knights. That's right, San Jose and Las Vegas. And I don't need singing in the background of my YouTube video. I just need instrumentals. So I promised this the other day, wanted to deliver tonight. I'm excited about this. You know, it's one of those things where we're fortunate. Those of us who follow the Sharks, cover the Sharks, love the Sharks, you know on an annual basis that it's going to take some real things to go wrong to not get to the playoffs. And here they are again. And this is where, obviously, they're going to get evaluated, judged. It's the payoff. It's the payoff of the regular season, you know? So I wanted to go through. I have some notes prepared here, have some thoughts prepared. And why don't I just begin with this notion about the Sharks' struggle at the finish of the season. It was evident. The record spells it out. Just watching the games, clear to see. I mean, have you seen what Las Vegas did in their last, I think, 8 games? 1 win in their last 8 games? And I'm going to go back and pull it up here in just a second. Of course, now I'm looking for all the notes I prepared. Having issues pulling them up. Figures, right? I'm going to check my other mail account here. By the way, I'm going to read your questions and comments as I go. So let me do that right now. Alex, you had the first comment. Congratulations. Ninja Hurdle Memes, hello. Zach, it is time for the Brody Show. But it's not about me. It's about round 1. Logan says, I think the Sharks will beat the Knights because they have the better record. Well, I mean, again, it's one of those things, and we're about to talk about it here. The regular season, what does it mean when 2 teams match up like this in the playoffs? I think you throw a lot of it out the door. For the record, Fernando says the Sharks are sweeping. Sharks in 6, Sharks in 4. You want to know my prediction? Here it is. I'm going to give it to you in just a second here. Here we go. Sharks in 3. Just kidding. I don't do predictions like that. It's just, yeah. Jessica says it's going to be an interesting series for sure. I agree with that. Alex saying Vegas in 7, sadly. Well, I'll tell you what. The fact that projections are all over the place is what makes this interesting. The real sad part to me is that you're going to get a really good Pacific Division team that's out of it after round 1. I mean, and I think if I could restructure the playoff format to go the old way, 1 versus 8, 2 versus 7, I think the Sharks would be playing Dallas right now. And maybe Las Vegas and San Jose could meet. Instead of this being a round 1 matchup, it could have been the Western Conference final matchup. But it just can't happen that way, unfortunately. I wish we could kind of go back to that. All right, the good news is I am so close to getting those notes that I want/need. /can't do without. You can't start a YouTube video without all your notes. Here we go. Got them. All right, so you know what? I've already done the Sharks video, and I am going to talk more about the Sharks regular season, but let's actually begin with Las Vegas. And like I said, you take a look at how they closed out their regular season here. Kill the music for a second. The only team that they have beat since March 21st, like it's April 8th. Okay, so that was not a month ago, but, you know, almost a month ago, right? 2+ weeks. Let's be real. The only team they beat were the Edmonton Oilers 3-1. They lost to the Red Wings in overtime 3-2. They lost to St. Louis 3-1 in regulation. Lost to the Avs 4-3 in regulation. Lost to the Wild 3-2 in regulation. I am noticing a trend here. A lot of one-goal losses. I almost said one run. I have 1 foot in baseball season already. They lost 4-3 in overtime, of course, to the Sharks. And I do want to talk about that March 30th game at SAP Center. Then they beat the Oilers 3-1, lost to Arizona 4-1, and then lost to the LA Kings 5-2. And Fleury started those last 2 games, allowed 4 goals in each of them. So what do we make of 2 teams here that both had really rough finishes to their season? If you're going to play it up, I'll tell you this, if you're going to play it up as a storyline for the Sharks, and it probably should be, you definitely have to go that equal route with Las Vegas. I mean, they had an equal, and I don't want to say worse, but they had at least an equal rough finish to this season. And specifically, let's focus on even a more microscopic level. Just look at the last 2 games. At least San Jose, in their last 2 games, got those wins because they allowed 2 or fewer goals, right? 1 to Edmonton, 1 win against the Avs, which the Golden Knights lost to at least Colorado of those 2. So all I'm here to say is that if we're gonna start there about basing these 2 teams in a playoff matchup and who had the better or more interesting finish to the regular season, they were similar and not in a good way. So if we're gonna, like I said, if we're gonna build that element up about the Sharks, let's make sure we do it to Las Vegas in a very similar way. But this is a team that in their second season of existence put up 93 points, finished 3rd in the Pacific, 43, 32, and 7 was their record. I liked their tweet. Thus concludes the second best season in franchise history. That's hilarious. And that's trying to rub it in about all their early success. I get it. And I don't think the rest of the league, no fan base besides Las Vegas, is going to like that one. Top 3 scores in their playoff run last season, all right, were also their top 3 scorers in this regular season. So top 3 guys from last playoffs were also their top 3 guys in this regular season. Marchessault had 59 points. Wild Bill Karlsson had 56 points. And Riley Smith had 53. You're saying, but wait a second, what about Mark Stone? Well, Mark Stone had a lot of those points scored of his 73. He actually has the highest total, but a lot of those were scored with Ottawa. And there is a total Mark Stone effect of when he got traded over. I'll tell you about their record. I'll tell you about their win percentage. It, as you know, increased dramatically. I mean, this is a team, they had a rough start to the season, minus Nate Schmidt. The suspension, which I'll go into maybe later on, from the outside, I thought it was seemingly super unfair. Like a mistake happened. It was caught. It was looked at, and the substance he had of a microscopic, undetectable level almost. Residue, accident. I don't know. I have a hard time believing there was anything intentional going on. Clearly, he couldn't have benefited from the small dosage of the illegal substance, but I digress. He had, a 20-game suspension to start this season, and they missed Nate Schmidt. He's a guy that leads the team typically in time on ice, and I think at the end of this year, he was almost 22 minutes a game. Yeah, 21:57 a game time on ice. By the way, finished with a plus 22 rating this season. So anyway, more on that later, but just so you know, their best guys from last season, last postseason, last playoffs, translated into being once again their best scorers this year. And yeah, their top line, the scoring line, the most impressive one, still intact. But it was their second line, which was buffed up in the past offseason. Pacioretty had 22 goals. Not the greatest season for the former Montreal captain. And I know he kind of tailed off here even at the end as well, too. Definitely had a role he was on but is not on it going into the second season. Paul Stastny, 42 points. Both those guys, again, also went through some injuries, not to mention some struggles. But just going back to Mark Stone, that was such a boost when they got him at the trade deadline. He had 11 points in 18 games with Las Vegas, 5 goals, 6 apples. And the biggest thing here is take a look at those 18 games, what the Golden Knights did with him. Record-wise, 11-6-2. Their goals per game, 3.32 per game scored in those 18. Goals allowed per game, 2.58. So again, 18 games with Stone, as opposed to the prior 13 games they played before acquiring Stone from Ottawa. In those prior 13, 3 wins of those 13 games. Their goals per game was back at 2.31. They basically increased, on average, a goal per game after acquiring Mark Stone. And their goals allowed per game, it was a 3.54. It went down to a 2.58. Now, you tell me, this is hockey, the ultimate team sport, right? How does one guy make that much of a difference? It happened. And I'm actually asking, and kind of out of curiosity, I don't know. I really don't know the answer. I don't have one to give you here. But it's just crazy how the arrival of one player made all that difference for this team in the last, I want to say probably 5-6 weeks since the trade deadline. Nate Schmidt, here's his quote. Quote, "I think our depth up front is definitely better. Our ability to have 3 lines that can score is so important this time of year. If you look at the teams that have won the last 5 or 6 cups, they have had depth scoring." Oh, really, Nate Schmidt? Have you looked at the Sharks roster? All right. No trash talk here. No trash talk. Just kind of just trying to go over things. Max Pacioretty. "Now it's time to get down to work and play the real hockey." End quote. I like it, and I agree. I think Sharks fans agree. And Pacioretty, with some playoff experience in Montreal, certainly understands what it's all about. And now he's excited to do it in the Western Conference, and he's going to get that first test against San Jose. Marc-Andre Fleury. I know we're going to talk goaltending from the San Jose side, so we've got to talk it from Las Vegas' side. This season, his 9th career 30-plus win season. Now, he did that while missing the last couple weeks. In fact, about the last 3 weeks of the end of the regular season with the lower body injury. And he came back, like I said before, for the last 2 games. And in those 2 games, 2 losses, and he allowed 4 goals in each of them. So, again, as much as everybody wants to sit here and say, well, look how the Sharks finished, look how Las Vegas finished. Look how Marc-Andre Fleury, the piece that they were waiting for to come back, look what he did. It's interesting. And what does it mean going into the playoffs? It's up to all of our guesses. It really is. I've seen so much in the last 10 years of covering the Sharks and all the playoffs they've started to let you know that Fleury could stand on his head in Game 1 on Wednesday night, coming off these 2 4-goal performances allowed. You know what I'm saying? Nothing ever makes sense, but if you are looking for trends, there is one that's important to note. Let's see here. What else do I want to talk about? Experience. Now, I do want to later on kind of make a case for the Sharks that no group in the entire Western Conference has as much playoff experience together as the Sharks do. I mean, Vlasic, Pavelski, Couture, Thornton, Burns even, and I'm trying to name the oldest or longest tenured Sharks first. There's a core group that have been going to the playoffs basically annually for a very long time now. And so not only the amount of playoff games played, but also playoff games played together. And if you tell me that doesn't mean anything, I'll tell you you're wrong, because there's nothing like being down in Game 6, facing elimination, coming back to win that, and coming back to win a Game 7. My point is, the Sharks have been through a lot of postseason adversity, and they haven't escaped it every single time. But they've faced it before, and they have avoided crumbling many times before. Las Vegas, as a new franchise, you definitely just can't say that about their players, that they have it either individually or collectively. But entering the 2019 postseason, Marc-Andre Fleury, going back to him, he leads all active goaltenders in playoff games played at 135. Playoff games won at 75. Playoff shutouts at 14. And he sits 2 wins away from tying Mike Vernon, who had 77 playoff wins, for 7th all-time. So right now, Fleury, 8th all-time in goalie playoff wins. So there is that, right? There is experience right there. Before last season, when the Golden Knights went to the final, had all that other experience with the Pittsburgh Penguins, including 3 Stanley Cups. He's the only Cup winner on the Las Vegas roster. And one of only 12 active NHL players and the only active goalie to have his name on the cup at least 3 times. That's crazy. So here's a guy that has experience. Like I said, the Las Vegas team doesn't necessarily have individual or collective experience like the Sharks. But here's a goalie who blows everybody else out of the water in terms of seeing things in the second season. Nate Schmidt, going back to him, leader in time on ice per game this season, 3 seconds below 22 minutes per game, was a plus 22 rating to end the season. Only played in 61, but again, had the 20-game suspension to start the season for violating the NHL's policy on performance-enhancing substances. Yeah, is it really worth it for us to delve back into that? I think maybe I touched on it enough before. It's crazy that the league saw something minuscule in him, had to go by the book, had to suspend him. The Golden Knights really struggled out of the gate. If you recall the first couple weeks of the season, I mean, it looked like they were destined to have a disastrous season. So there was, don't get me wrong, there has been adversity in San Jose's season, mostly injury-related, and also in Las Vegas's season. And suspension-related at the start for Schmidt. At the end, I think Fleury is still not out of the woods yet. So that's been some adversity. But how about this stat? When both Schmidt and Fleury were in the lineup this year, Las Vegas was 27-12-4. That's a .674 points percentage, right? They're capitalizing on points almost 68% of the time. Just to give you some comparison, the Calgary Flames, they had a points percentage this season, and they finished first in the entire Western Conference. .652 was their points percentage. So Las Vegas, when they had Schmidt in there and when they had Fleury in goal, .674 points percentage. And as of right now, like I said, Fleury missed time at the end. Schmidt missed time at the beginning. They've got both these guys into the playoffs, but what really does Marc-Andre Fleury look like? I do want to point out a couple other things here. Ryan Reeves, to me, is going to be a factor in this series. He's gonna try and be a huge factor in this series. He's going to try and get some of the most important Sharks off their game. Maybe a Timo Meier, maybe an Evander Kane. I think he's definitely going to get some attention from the Sharks' fourth line. But I think it's important to note here, if you're the Sharks, you have multiple guys that'll go after Reeves. And we saw that, by the way. On March 30th, we saw a couple go and try and get their redemption on him in that game. And maybe that was setting a tone. Do I really think that what happened on March 30th at SAP Center is really going to resurface round one, game one between these two teams? Not immediately. I really don't. I really feel like that was two teams each trying to solidify their tone, because at that point, they pretty much knew they were going to play each other in round one. This was the last chance to be physical against each other, be hard on each other. And so, over time of this series, do I think that physical, and first off, when I say the physical element, is the physical element going to be there from game one? Absolutely. It's a series. You're trying to wear out the opponent, finish your checks. You're trying to be hard on your opponent so that it pays off over and over and over when you are hard on them over and over and over. But we literally saw, and Thornton was out there for this, and Reeves was out there, and both those guys got $2,500 suspensions. But we saw a scrap go on for the entire TV break, a 2.5-minute TV break during this last game. We talked about it on TV afterwards. Like, Curtis and I were watching this. We go to break on TV. All right, I start, maybe putting a tweet together or whatever. I look up and wait, are they replaying that? Curtis says, no, that's still going on. I said, no, Curtis, they're just replaying that. That can't still be going on. No, it was. It went on the entire TV break. So, is there animosity? Yes. Is it going to showcase itself right out of the gate? Not necessarily. Both these clubs are smarter than that. But don't think that I'll bet you by game 3, we see it. Or game 4, we see it. Let's be totally impartial here. Let's say the series is split after 2 games in San Jose. Don't you think going back to Las Vegas, Ryan Reeves figures, they're in our barn now. Here's where I started. It could be the same thing the other way. What if the Sharks are up 2-0? Game 3, right? We gotta have the tables turned somehow if you're Las Vegas at that point. So game 3 is when I predict the nastiness comes out. You're going to see the physicality from shift 1, but the nastiness, I think, is a game 3 thing. Let me have a look at some questions and comments here, and then I'll get on to the Sharks. Let's see here. Will Fleury be back? Fleury is already back, like I've been saying. Maybe I should have screened some of these questions first. Here's Steven with another great point, and I was looking at this earlier. In the Sharks' last 10 games, 3 wins. In Las Vegas's last 10 games, 3 wins. Home ice advantage. Thank you for bringing that up. To me, home ice advantage is actually not at the end of this series. Imagine that for a second. Everybody talks about home ice advantage, Game 7 at SAP Center, and that is great. Don't get me wrong. But what I think, and actually Pete DeBoer commented on this the other day, and when he said it, I was like, that's exactly what I'm saying. For the Sharks, in kind of uncertain waters right now, right? Like, they feel good about their game. It hadn't been great. It's just kind of like when you're starting to feel better after an illness and you think you're okay, but you don't want to push it. This is the great thing. They get these first 2 games of this series and of the playoffs on home ice, where SAP Center was pretty friendly to them this season. They only lost 11 times in regulation on home ice. And if it weren't for really the second to last homestand where they got swept, they could have ended the season with single-digit regulation home losses. It's just one of those things that I think beginning the playoffs at home is equally important to having Game 7 of Round 1 on home ice. One question is, does Erik Karlsson's experience have an impact with a new team, or just minimally layer onto a playoff experienced Sharks roster? Yeah, I mean, it's one of those things where, like last playoffs, and it's a shame because he got hurt and he was ineffective, and it wasn't revealed, his injury, until the end of the playoffs. One second. But that was Evander Kane. Evander Kane, it's amazing that he had never been, first off, when he came to the Sharks last year at the deadline, no NHL hat tricks, no postseason games under his belt. He got both of those taken care of quickly. How do I say this? I don't think Kane was any less of a player because of the lack of playoff experience. His injury derailed him last year against, and I think he might have injured himself against Anaheim, if I'm correct, in round 1 in the sweep. And then it really showed in round 2 against Las Vegas. But does it, going back to the main question, does it help that Karlsson has been a playoff player and he's been, a far length of playoff experience? Absolutely. In fact, I think the last time, was it 2017? Karlsson was in the conference final, if I recall correctly, against Pittsburgh for Ottawa. So anyway, long story short, here's a guy that has the experience and joins a group that has the experience. Of course, I think it's better than if Karlsson has never been here before. And I think, too, I'm glad he got the 1 game in. I really am the other night. Do I wish it were more games? Absolutely. And I think if you look at his minutes, I don't know what he finished at, but the first 2 periods, Pete DeBoer didn't really dial down his minutes. In the third period, he did. I think it's important for Karlsson also to figure out how his body felt and how the groin felt after that game. Because if he was just playing his first game back, let's say Wednesday night, you got the legs, the lungs, and the timing to worry about, and you also don't know how your body's going to recover. So now he's already played a game in the regular season, tested it, and probably didn't even go. I think his quote was that he didn't even really exert himself to the point that he possibly could have. So he didn't go 100%, so to speak, in that game. But it's also, like I said, good to know how he's going to feel recovering, because, again, half the battle, it's not just being able to participate and contribute in a game. It's also about bouncing back and doing it all over again 2 nights later, over and over and over. And last point, before I really start to dive into the Sharks, I've been saying this all along. If you're San Jose, you have to prepare for the fact that you want to play 20-something playoff games. The year the Sharks lost to the Penguins in the final, I think it was 24, 5, or 6 games, 25 games maybe. It was 20. I'm trying to remember. I know there were 7 games in round 2. Anyway, somebody else can do the math for me. But you're playing another quarter plus of a regular season. So you have to mentally and physically prepare, if you're Karlsson, with this injury, that you want to play, 25 games at least, whatever it takes, with the way you're currently feeling. Let me see if I can go back to some more questions, comments here. Man, there are a lot of them, and I really do appreciate it, by the way. Brody, here's a guy. Brazil. Do I keep saying here's a guy? You know what I notice in doing a lot of these unscripted videos where I'm just talking to myself, talking to you guys, is that I repeat a lot of things. I say, by the way, a lot. Here's a guy, probably a lot. Thank you. I mean, your name is Satan on here. Is it Satan? Shaitan, maybe? Satan? How about this? Oh, who's going to open the door for the Sharks on home ice? I don't know. I'm interested to find out. And again, I'm excited for the playoff atmosphere, the street rally, the viewing parties that they're going to be doing for the away games. That reminds me of when I was a kid. They had those. That's going to be so very cool. You're going to have the atmosphere of SAP Center when the team is on the road in Las Vegas, and everybody gets to watch the game together. That is so cool. Those sick EK65 passes were missed. So glad he is back. That one is from Wing T Guru. Yeah, and you know what? Here's the thing about Karlsson. He had 3 different seasons to me. He had the acclimation season, which was the first 25 games, didn't look right, didn't get a goal, didn't really fit in, or did fit in, but just something wasn't right. And then he had the middle portion of the season where everything was right. Point streak, dude was racking up the assists. I know he only finished with, 3 goals this year, but the guy was an integral part of keeping the offense moving. And then there's the third portion of the season where it was injury riddled. So it's crazy to think about everything in retrospect now, but definitely 3 different seasons for Erik Karlsson. Who put the question mark on the teleprompter? Me? Brody, where did you get your hoodie? I need to know. This is a Lululemon hoodie. I'm glad you asked. I'm glad I didn't even have to slip in the product placement endorsement. I'm glad somebody asked. So Dillon, thank you for that. It is super comfortable. By the way, rain tonight? What happened here in the Bay Area? Didn't see rain coming. It was warm and humid all day, and then the temperature dropped, got close to the dew point. Like that meteorology, and then all of a sudden we had rain. But that's not what you're here for. You guys want to talk. You guys want to talk Sharks and Golden Knights. I took a little intermission there. I took a halftime, which we don't have in hockey, but wanted to break it up here before I really dive hard into the Sharks. San Jose has now reached the playoffs in 14 of the last 15 tries, including the last 4 straight. I take it back even further than that. 19 out of the last 21 tries they have been in the playoffs. And that's what I was saying before about being part of the Sharks, is that I hope everybody goes to understand, realize, and really let this sink in. There's a lot of teams that wish they could be just in the conversation like the Sharks are almost every year. Imagine stretches of 3 and 4 and 5 years where you're not even in it. You play those 82 games, and then right now we're doing a season recap because it's all done. And we're talking about, moves on July 1st, and we're talking about who's going to pan out next year. Like, we have potentially 2+ months to talk about here of this season continuing. So never forget how fortunate you are to be following this team again into a second season. But yeah, the Sharks 3 wins in their last 12 games. Yep, 12 games. 3 wins in the last 12 games. 3-8-1 to close out the season. I talked before about 3 wins in their last 10. It's actually 3 wins in their last 12. Going back to Karlsson. It just feels like there's so much on Erik Karlsson right now, isn't there? Why aren't enough people talking about Joe Pavelski or Joe Thornton entering these playoffs? Or Timo Meier. I think a lot of people are actually talking about Timo Meier's health. Here's a 30-goal scorer, a physical player, a playoff-type player. Hopefully, like I said, he says he's healthy. He says he's ready to go. Hopefully that's the case. I know everybody's talking about goaltending, and I'll get into that as well, too. But, Karlsson's game the other night was his first since February 26th. It was a span where he missed 17 games, and in retrospect, I feel like they were playing it super, super safe. And let's hope that is the case. And I was right here. These are in my notes that Karlsson did play injured, right? So here's a guy that's not only been to the playoffs before, but been injured and in the playoffs and helping the Senators all the way to the Eastern Conference Final when they lost in Game 7 to Pittsburgh, who went on to win that and then win the whole thing. Pete DeBoer, here's what he told our cameras the other night, talking about Karlsson, either having him or having him not 100%. Here's the way Pete put it. Even a rusty Erik Karlsson is a pretty good player. I think he's going to really help us on Wednesday when we get started. All that regular season work really is just to get a ticket to play next week. That's what we have. The real work starts now, end quote. So you know what? I'm not exhausted about Karlsson, but I feel like I've talked enough about him on here. And in a sense, I'll just make this last statement. I think the reason why hopes and expectations kicked up another notch for the Sharks this entire season were because of number 65. When they got him back on September 13th, if the bar was already set pretty high for the Sharks and expectations for this season, like, it just got popped up way more because you get a Norris caliber defenseman added to your already, strong suited blue line. Martin Jones. Remember, like, his first full season as an NHL goalie, as a starting goalie, Stanley Cup final. The Sharks ran it in 2016 against Pittsburgh. He did have 36 wins this year, which is, I want to say, his fourth straight 30-win season, 30-plus win season. But he also had a career-worst .896 save percentage and .294 goals against. And there is this stat, they say defense wins championships. As a team, the Sharks allowed 3.15 goals per game for the season, right? That's no matter what goalie's in there. That's the team letting up those goals. That's the worst goals per game average among any playoff team that's in it this year. Of the 16 teams, the Sharks give up, on average, the most goals per game, 3.15. So we've already had the debate. We've already gone over this many, many times. Is it the chicken or is it the egg? Is it goaltending or is it team defense? I mean, you look at Aaron Dell's stats, they're not necessarily impressive either. Both these goalies are in the 800s in save percentage. Both had career worst statistical seasons. So you're telling me that they both just coincidentally had these rough years together at the same time? Or is there something else to the story? Like the skaters in front of them, like 2-on-1s, like 3-on-1s, like 1-on-nones, like an unmarked player with a grade A chance or two right out in front of you. Team defense is going to take this Sharks group as far as they can go. And it's not a matter of defensemen. It's a matter of everybody. Turnovers, being in bad defensive positioning, overcommitting to one side of the ice, and then all of a sudden, puck pops out, loose puck goes the other side of the ice, weak side, and all of a sudden you're caught. That's the kind of stuff that I think Martin Jones had to bail out the Sharks best he could this year. Could he have done a little bit better at bailing them out? I suppose, but he was not presented with the same situations, I think, as he was in years past. How about this? Brent Burns, a career-high 83-point season. Point-per-game player plus for number 88. Led all D-men in points in the NHL for the second time in the last 3 seasons. So, hey, just give him the Norris right there, right? I mean, that's what it's all about. It's the best defenseman in the league. Should have to do with offense, right? I'm kidding. And I've always disliked that, by the way. I think being a Norris Trophy winner should have something to do with stats, but more to do with just watching a player play. Should it be about plus minus? No. Should it be about points? No. Should be about the combination of everything and stats, fittingly, being a certain percentage of that. But not a majority of that. But yeah, I mean, like I said before, will Burnsy be a Norris Trophy finalist this time around? If he's not, I will make an hour-long YouTube rant on it. And I understand there were some rough moments for him defensively this year. There's rough moments for anybody that plays as much as he does. He's on the ice every critical moment of the game, basically. Look who's out there. So, you know the old saying, like, when you play with fire, you're going to get burnt? Like, Burns is thrown in the fire a lot. It happens. He also makes some plays that nobody in his class can make. Nobody. No defenseman can do some of the stuff in the league that he's doing. And it's not just scoring and finishing plays and looking like a forward. How about just sometimes keeping a puck in the offensive zone? I've seen him kick it. I've seen him jump up and bat a puck back in the zone. I mean, I've seen him catch it on the stick blade in midair, keep it in the zone. I mean, it's just, there's not even stats, I think, for everything that he does. Is he going to win the Norris this time around? I don't know. I think everybody's going to look at Calgary. The season they had, Giordano, his stats really impressive as well. So to me, those two guys are right up there at the end for the Norris. Sharks, by the way, with Karlsson and Burns, are the 8th team in NHL history to reach the playoffs with multiple defensemen who've previously won the Norris. So let me just close things out here on defense. And again, not just to do with defensemen, but entire team defense. This is a 32-0 team this season when they allow 2 or fewer. What's Las Vegas's game? High scoring, high speed, transition. They crash the net as hard as anybody. As soon as there's a scoring opportunity, I mean, they just swarm around Martin Jones for loose pucks. Like net play, I think, net front play for the Sharks and tying up sticks, it's going to have to be super tight in this series if they want to get past it. Really going to have to tighten that area of the game up. And that's the thing. Like, if you were looking at this and you were saying, well, Las Vegas beat San Jose last year in the playoffs, and look where they went last year, and, if you're not feeling good about this, like, look at it and all the deficiencies. These aren't things that the Sharks are incapable of. They're not incapable of fixing that. It's just a matter of executing in the moment, split-second stuff, which is difficult. It's not like anybody is intentionally not doing this stuff. It just comes down to execution of competition in the moment. Can they do these things? I guess the bigger point I'm trying to make here is, have you ever followed a sports team that's going into a playoff series and you look at them and say, man, we are totally outmatched here. We can't hang with these guys. That is not the case at all with the Sharks, even if you're on the pessimistic side of things. If you're very pessimistic about it, I don't think your viewpoint is that the Sharks aren't capable of this. It's just a matter of execution. Can they tighten things up? Are they capable of it? Yes. Look at all their win streaks this year. Lots of 2 or fewers in there. Again, 32-0 when they allow 2 or fewer goals. All right, let's go to the offensive side of things. And you want to talk about Las Vegas's top line. Great. You want to talk about their second line. Great. I don't know that any team has the scoring depth of the Sharks this year. 4 different players hit 30 goals or more, including Pavelski, 38 goals. He's 34 years old, the captain, contract season, 64 points, 38 goals. Best season in a long time. Tomas Hertl. That's another guy I'm really, really looking forward to in these playoffs. Had a really nice playoffs the year the Sharks went to the Stanley Cup final, just until he got hurt. He's a playoff player, big boy, finishing checks, heavy, hard to play against. Has shown some signs of confidence this year in passes he's making, and you're like, whoa, I was Hertl? And it's not that he ever wasn't capable of it. He just maybe feels more comfortable to do these things now. 35 goals for 48, by the way, this year. That was 13 better than 22, which was his previous best from last season. So 22 was his watermark last year. Best season. Best goal season for 48. He has 35 this year. Upped it by 13. That's tremendous. Timo Meier. If you want to talk about, individual storylines and takeaways from the year, success stories, Timo Meier, to me, his story's got to be up there. One of the top 3. Like Joe Thornton's a top story, just sticking with it, 2 knee surgeries. Pavelski is probably a story. I guess Burns is also a story, just the amount of offense, and really not even goals for Burns, he just assists. That's a story to me, and so maybe 4, top 4. Timo Meier's up there. 30 goals for Timo time. And it's crazy here. They talk about an injured wrist for Timo. I'm not sure that was ever disclosed, clarified. I mean, Darnell Nurse fell on him. Timo actually tripped on the goalie's stick. He fell. He went into the inboards. Darnell Nurse was tripped by Timo. How often do you ever say that a nurse would hurt a hockey player? Well, Darnell Nurse hurt a fellow hockey player. Says he's ready to go. You have to believe that. What's the truth on that? Don't know. Really don't know. Missed the last game of the regular season, but I said even going into the other night, Saturday night, the last game, I mean, if I'm the Sharks, I don't care if x-rays came back 100% negative. Just wouldn't play him. Why risk it? Give him the rest. He played almost all the games this year. But again, going back to Timo's status, this is not me disbelieving Timo Meier, the human being. He's one of the nicest guys ever. Like, personally, yeah, I root for him. Of course. I like individuals. I mean, I like the Sharks too, but I like certain individuals. I like Timo. But this is a chess move by a hockey player. I think he's healthy. I mean, I hope he is. I generally believe it. But if he also had a broken bone and figured out a way to play through it, he would also say the same thing. So, I'm not trying to lower the bar for Timo either. I'm not trying to sit here and say, well, if he doesn't perform, here's why. But I just want everybody to be aware that, and there's guys on both sides right now playing through stuff that, I mean, if you literally took, the 40 some odd skaters on Wednesday night, and instead of dropping the puck and playing a hockey game, if you just did a physical inspection on all these guys before the game, you would find tendons and bones and bruises and you'd find so much stuff of why they're not even healthy. But this is hockey. This is the playoffs, where if you're good to go 82%, you're great. 82% is fantastic. 60% is playable. Heck, 51% is playable. You pretty much have to be in like the 20% of feeling good to not play. I wasn't done talking about 30 goal scorers. After Timo, how about Evander Kane? Tied a career high with 30 goals. I would have to think that, first full season in San Jose, feeling comfortable. I would bet you Evander probably set out this year to get at least 30. Knew he was capable of it before. Guys don't really like to talk about individual goals. Goals for goals. They don't like to talk about how many goals they'd like to get at the beginning of the season, right? Training camp, it's like if you asked a guy, how many would you like to get? What's your number? Nobody's going to sit there and go, well, Brody, 30 actually. It's rare that anybody says that with meaning. But you'd have to think he knew he was capable of it, wanted to do it in San Jose, coming off a 7-year, almost $50 million contract extension with the Sharks. So, I mean, happy for Kane, playoff player. Think about the tone that he was attempting to set with Ryan Reeves the other night, March 30th on the bench, calling him a babysitter. I'm just going to paraphrase here. I think he told Reeves on the bench, your coach must love you because all you do is babysit your teammates. That's all you do. Coach must love you. That kind of got picked up on our rinkside mics. But, again, is to me, Kane is at his best, and Curtis says this all the time, when he's fully involved. I think that's such a great way to say it. Involved physically in the game, involved on the score sheet, skating, making plays. And maybe even if somebody needs to drop the gloves and maybe he's the guy to do it. I don't want him to get hurt. I don't want to see him in the box for terribly long. But that's what number 9 can do for you. I'm really, I feel like the way that Kane and Meier and Hertl, those are 3 guys I just mentioned there, and not to exclude Pavelski, but I feel like those are playoff type hockey players. And there's others too on the Sharks, don't get me wrong. But I'm really interested to see how their success in the regular season translates into this second season. All right, I am going to get back to some more questions and comments, but let me just make this one last point about these playoffs. I wonder, and I haven't really talked to anybody about this. I want to be honest. This is only coming out of my brain right now. I wonder how many guys on this team on the Sharks have the win it for jumbo mentality going on right now. I mean, how many more years does Joe have in him? He's 39, 2 knee surgeries. Been trying at this for a long time with the Sharks. This is probably one of their best opportunities on paper, right? I'm wondering how many guys can use Joe Thornton as a source of just motivation. And not like anybody needs it. They're all playing for themselves in the playoffs and the team, and like they all want a piece of the cup. Don't get me wrong. But let's pretend like you're watching this YouTube video. I'm here in the home studio. Let's pretend this is the dressing room. We're all looking at each other right now. We're putting on the skates. We're getting ready to go on Wednesday night in the Sharks dressing room. And I look over and I see Jumbo over there. Man, like, is he gonna get another crack at this? Here's a guy that just, like, he could have called it a career. Like, he could have been done by now. This guy came back from 2 knee surgeries. He's on the third line. He's a Hall of Famer. Playing on our third line right now. And he loves it, by the way. He's with Marcus Sorensen and Kevin LeBanc. We got to do it for this guy, right? That has to be, if it's not on the forefront of consciousness, that has to be subliminal in somehow, some way, right? It has to be. So I'm really curious if that's going to be a factor. Just an additional factor for the Sharks. I hope it is. Joe Thornton leading all active players in assists and points. Obviously going for that first Stanley Cup. This is his 21st NHL season. He would join Ray Bourque and Dave Andreychuk as the third player to win a cup, his first cup, after skating in 1,500 or more regular season games. Like I said, Joe's been at this a long time. We saw Alexander Ovechkin get his last year. There's another long-time player, not obviously to the extent of Jumbo, but a guy where you're saying, here I go with that here's a guy thing, like I commented earlier. I do say that a lot. But Joe Thornton, there are others who have been in this situation before, played a lot of NHL regular season games and didn't win a cup yet. But here's 2 other ones that played more than 1,500, just like Joe, Bourque and Andreychuk, and eventually got that first one. So it's happened before. Hopefully it happens again. Let me try and zip through the comment section here. Who will start, Donskoy or Haley, though? You know what? And I think it's a luxury of the Sharks right now, being more healthy, that they have the choice between those 2 players. Donskoy was a healthy scratch as of late. Haley got the empty netter the other night. I know, I'm kidding. That's not really a point. But, I think Pete DeBoer is going to look at this as a matchup basis. What better suits the matchup, Donskoy or Haley? Simple as that. And I really dislike the notion that Michael Haley is a player who can't do anything with the puck. I hate that. They're the theme of enforcers, and then that role of player being gone, and then some people still want to call Haley an enforcer. The Sharks have had many other players over all the years that were more of the enforcer type, but when you gave him the puck, yeah, an enforcer doesn't do anything with the puck. And I feel like Michael Haley is way more capable than that. Justin Fulmer. Hey, a Dodgers logo and $2? I appreciate that, Justin. Talk a little about Dillon. I would love to, actually. Justin, thank you very much. Justin, I assume you don't like the San Francisco Giants. Kidding. Don't mean to rile anybody up. No baseball talk here yet. Sorry. Look, Brendan Dillon, let me tell you a story. I'll tell you a couple stories. I want to say this was in January. We were doing a game at SAP Center, and I had to go back downstairs afterwards and grab my bag and stuff like that. And on the way out, I was having a conversation by the Zamboni entrance and exit, which is also the way out to the parking lot and the players' parking lot. And I saw Dilly coming from a ways away, and he had a good game that night. But he also got hurt, had the ice bag on his hand. And I said, "Hey, Dilly, what's going on?" And then I see, like, he approaches me, and he comes over with the injured hand to come shake my hand. And I'm like, "Hey, man, it's just like, you're such a nice guy. You didn't need to do that." But that just kind of goes to show you, and he and I have always had a good relationship. As soon as he came over from Dallas, he was highly, highly recommended by some people I know down in Dallas, knew him well. But I think, for him to be the plus-minus leader for the Sharks on this team this season, without being an offensive threat, what does that tell you? I really feel like, and there was a couple seasons ago, in fact, it might have been the Stanley Cup final season, where at the beginning of that regular season, right? So that would have been like October of 2015, we all noticed, like, man, Dillon looks faster, looks a little bit more agile, because he had done a ton of off-season conditioning and training. But I've always felt like Justin Braun throughout the years, and Braun did not have a statistically great season. I understand that. Vlasic didn't either, although it dramatically improved near the end. But in the same way that I felt like Justin Braun might have been overshadowed for a lot of years defensively, I feel like Brendan Dillon might be that this season for the Sharks. And as for Dillon being the good media guy, holy smokes. So when we taped an episode of Shark Central with him, and I kid you not, and because this was true, my first question to him was, Brendan, my wife and I agreed that if one Shark had to come over and babysit our son, you would be that guy. And I know other players on the team have children, like Bernsey, for example, the father. Joe Pavelski, a father. I get it. But there's just something about Brendan Dillon. You know what I'm saying? Like, he's not a father, but I just trust him. Like, I would. That's the kind of guy he is. Thoughtful, doesn't give you, first off, in terms of interview responses, I'm a big Logan Couture fan. And I hate the fact that he has to, a lot of times, be the most transparent and open and honest when the team's not doing well. But I think it's so valuable. He and I talked about that this season. Logan said that, he, as a sports fan, understands the frustration of watching a team not do well and then everybody kind of putting some peanut butter on the top of it and just eating it up. It's fine. They lost 5 straight. Eat it up. Logan says he doesn't want to be that guy. And I think we all appreciate that. Dillon doesn't have that maybe flair for the openness that Logan does. But again, I think along those lines, Brendan's going to tell you something interesting, thoughtful, and relevant during his answers. And that's what we in the media are looking for. The media. Drew Doughty was wrong about Brent Burns, says Austin Westbrook. Drew Doughty making those comments. And also, I think you could kind of see, and Curtis and I talked about this on TV right after Doughty made those comments. Look, he's just had a really frustrating season. When he said, like a week after that, I just can't wait till this thing's over. I guess I understand that. You may just not want to put it that way and let your fans know all that. So I think Doughty got a little cavalier with his comments near the end of the season. And I know he was building Giordano up by maybe tearing Burns down, but you don't need to make it that personal, man. That was a little bit too much. Dilly's a good Canadian boy. Grapes would love him if he knew who he was. Are you saying that Don Cherry does not know the plus-minus leader of the San Jose Sharks? Probably not. Doughty with the second worst plus-minus in the league. Yeah. Well, again, just untimely to make those comments. Eric with a question about Sharks Playoff Live. Are we doing it at a bar? No, but I might be drinking. Just kidding. So all the games, just so you know, I should have mentioned this before, but since you're here, since it's prime time of this video, I'll tell you now. Sharks Playoff Live is the new name of Sharks pregame and postgame coverage. So no more pregame live. And by the way, I'm going to have to tune that. Here's another thing I say a lot, by the way. I'm going to have to tune that out of my brain. It's muscle memory. Hey, welcome to Sharks Pregame Live. Hey, glad you're with us here on Sharks Postgame Live. Can't do that. Sharks Playoff Live. For the first couple games, I think we're going half hours before and hours long shows afterwards. I think there's even the potential as we get deeper to do hour-long pregame shows. Don't quote me on it. There's a lot of balls being juggled, a lot of stuff up in the air right now in terms of schedules and timing and this and that. So they're working out all the fine details, but Sharks Playoff Live before and after every game of round one, which can be seen on NBC Sports California. Now, as you guys all know, round two goes over to the national networks. We used to have, when I first started 10 years ago working with the network, we used to have rounds 1 and 2, and that was super fun. But unfortunately, unfortunately, because they do a good job, and it's still in our company within NBC, but we don't get to hear Randy and Bakes and Hetty in rounds 2, 3, and 4. But if you're with us on Sharks Playoff Live, I'm pretty sure we will have them involved, and that's the way you're going to get your announcers just before and after the game, so long as they go to rounds 2, 3, and 4. Rob here saying, I think Pete DeBoer will be on the hot seat if the Sharks are one and done. You know what? This is a round one preview, and I have yet to really discuss the opportunity or the situation. If that is the case, if the Sharks don't get past Las Vegas, what happens? And I really don't want to think about that right now. Let's see how this goes. Right? I mean, wasn't everybody a tad nervous when the Sharks were going up against Anaheim last year? The Ducks had won 10 of their final 12. Joe Thornton was hurt. Didn't look good. Ducks got swept in 4. So, will Twitter mission continue during the playoffs too? Yes, I believe that is the plan. I believe. Can't say for sure. Or you can just listen on the radio for Dan's beautiful voice. He scores! Yeah, Ruzanowski will be doing all the games on the radio. Let's see what else. Oh, so yeah, the situation if they don't make it. Look, I, I don't even want to go far into that, but I do not think that would produce wholesale changes coaching wise. I'll leave it at that. I don't. We're talking worst case scenario in the first round. I don't think so. Rob here saying, I hope Chris Cuthbert gets the national feed. I do not believe Chris Cuthbert is calling this series. I saw it come up earlier today. He was, I believe, on a different one, but not this one. Let's see here. Any other comments and questions you guys would like me to get to? I wanted to go back and try and see some of the ones I missed while I was blabbering on about the Sharks. I get it. A lot of you guys want to talk about either the Donskoy or Haley opportunity. Which guy is going to get it? Like I said before, I think that's got to trust Pete DeBoer in knowing what he wants to match up against Las Vegas. Let's see here. Timo Meier health. We talked about that. How about this one? Austin, hey, I appreciate that. $4.99 on the super, is that super chat? Is that what that's called? You're coming to game one. Let's get this. Oh, did I mention, by the way, Sharks Playoff Live on location? Let me not give everything away, but let me tell you for sure, games 1 and 2 at SAP Center, and there is more. I just don't want to say it yet. Don't want to say it yet. There's also the Tim Heed, Joachim Ryan. In the same way, it's Donskoy versus Haley. It's Tim Heed versus Joachim Ryan. I think, like I said, that goes back to the whole conversation of it's good for, at least right now, the Sharks are healthy enough entering round one that they have these options. You understand, like, we could be going into the playoffs and Haley's hurt and Joachim Ryan's hurt. So there is no choices. It's Heed and it's Donskoy, right? So for a coach to have options and for a coach to be able to adjust a game or 2 or 3 into the series to get if you need a different result and you think that change might produce some of it, spark something, that's great. I think that's not talked about enough. Maybe with the Sharks is that right now, and I know the name Radim Šimek was mentioned here earlier on in the chat. That's a player that I wish was available right now. I really do. They struggled as soon as he left, as soon as he got injured. The Sharks in mid-March just were not the same. Probably something to it. It's not the entire reason, but probably something to it. Brody with the tease. You're right. I don't want to give it all away, but we'll see on Wednesday and Friday night at SAP Center. Curtis will be there, either in real form or in hologram form. All right. Any other questions and comments? Any other thing that you guys would like me to get to? What is my prediction? I said before that I did not want to... Is this music still playing? It says it is, but it's not. I said before that I don't want to make predictions. Here's some things... Here's some things I do predict for the series. By the way, Anton, good morning from Denmark. Man, I appreciate that. That is sick. I'm always fascinated by that. Here I am on a Monday night, broadcasting from my house, and you're watching it in Denmark, thousands of miles away. Not in 1080 HD because my setup isn't doing that right now, but still, 720. That's awesome. I predict that Game 3 Like I said before, Game 3 is when the nastiness comes out. And what's another prediction I have for this series? I mean, I have the traditional... I say this one all the time. And I was wrong about it last year. I was wrong in the very best of ways. I don't think either team's going to sweep. But I said that about the Sharks and Ducks last year. So, let's hope I say that. Well, I did. I'll say that. And let's hope I'm wrong about it in favor of the Sharks. But truly, I don't... It comes down to, what are the weaknesses? Let's talk about that. What are the weaknesses of Las Vegas? What if Fleury's not right? And Malcolm Subban, nothing against him. I think he's good, actually. But they struggled without him for a while. They really did. I think he was actually pretty decent, and all of a sudden, then he wasn't. And you know what? Even in the games, out of those last, what did I say? Las Vegas won a single time in their last 8 games. There were a lot of 1-goal losses there. So it's not like they were getting blown out and getting hammered on a regular basis. Just another Randy saying good night from Oregon. I appreciate that. Andrew commenting on the topography design of this Lululemon hoodie. Noah, how disgusting do you think Ryan Reeves will be? Okay, here's what I want to do to close it, because I don't want to go too long here on the video. I want you guys to tell me your predictions, and I'll read some of the best ones. So go ahead in the comment section. If you haven't commented already, please do so. Give me your predictions, and maybe if you want to include why, go ahead, do that. Also, if you want to tell me where you've been watching this from, I would appreciate that too. Just another Randy G. Good night from Oregon. Hey, that's just as good. That's a different state. That's a couple 100 miles away at least. Lundy 87, Sharks in 6. Austin, Sharks in 6. Favorite game of the year? Maybe Jumbo's 400th when he did the Selly. I think he had the game winner. Jumbo's 3 goals against Boston. Even in that losing effort, that was one heck of a game to watch. Will we see my yellow blazer again? No. That was for promotional purposes. This is the playoffs now, right? Like Curtis and I, we're not messing around as much anymore. Not a lot of back and forth chirping, at least not on TV. Reeves will get suspended and the Sharks will win in 7. Wow, that's a heck of a prediction. Michael, watching from San Luis Obispo. Rob in Fresno, appreciate that. Sharks win 16 games. That's the ultimate prediction. Western Conference teams that went to the finals in the previous years did not return to the final the following year. You're right about that. San Jose, Chicago, Nashville, LA. Sharks in 5, watching from Las Vegas. I think you're the better half of the halftime show. This is Lundy from Minnesota. Well, halftime, intermission, and I would agree with you. It's not just an alphabetical order thing. B is always better than C. Brody, Curtis, you get it. He's not even here to defend himself. Hurdle will be the X factor. Andrew Peterson, the bro. Appreciate that, man. Karlsson, Sharks in 5. Jumbo scores 4 goals in a game. Watch out now. AJ, Sharks in 7. Home ice will be huge. John watching from Evansville, Indiana. I think I've been through Evansville. Justin predicting another suspension in this series. Yeah, Rafi Torres has already been suspended for Game 5 of this series, and it hasn't even started yet. Crazy how that works. Sharks in 5 with a double OT winner for San Jose at home. You know what? Here's one thing about the 14 games the Sharks and Golden Knights have played head-to-head in these last 2 years in playoffs. First off, 7 of the 14, Las Vegas has scored 1 within the first 5 minutes of the game. That has to change here in this series. You can't be playing from behind in half the games. Especially 5 minutes in, you can't be playing from behind. But there are so many close games played between these two. I would also say that the Sharks have been blown out in more than their share. But going back to my point, the thought that we're going to see some overtime hockey and some golden goal hockey, definitely a possibility. Marty's watching from Alberta. Appreciate that. Wild Rose country up there. You didn't say that. That's just off the top of my head. Bob B saying Vegas in 7. First off, it's Las Vegas. Let me see if I can do this here. It's Las Vegas. Hopefully you guys can hear that echo. Las Vegas. Sharks signed John Scott to a postseason contract. EK65 came back and they won 5-2. Maybe that was not a prediction I was looking for. Zincy, good night. See you on Wednesday. Marky Sharky saying Randy Hahn gets suspended. Well, if Honner's going to get suspended, I hope he does something, like noteworthy, honorable to get suspended for. Stands up for San Jose somehow, some way. Bob B, that's not a good prediction. You almost caught me reading that. That's so terrible. Why has Jumbo's greatness and milestones gone unnoticed and unappreciated by the NHL in general? I don't know. I don't know that they have. I think this year, we have tried our part, at least locally and regionally, to play up every single milestone by Jumbo, because you don't know, you never know how many more are in the books, and you want to celebrate each one, because looking back in the future, it would be foolish right now to just say, it doesn't matter, another milestone. Each one of them needs specific attention. Matt Sexton saying, Brody making it feel like I don't have work tomorrow. Everybody get some sleep. That's all I have to say. It's going to be a wild playoff series. I'll be doing, by the way, A's baseball like tomorrow, and I think a lot of the off days in between. So if that's your thing, you can catch me there. I'm also taping something with the NHL on NBC crew tomorrow. And I don't know where they're going to use it, but we're talking entirely Sharks, at least in my portion of the session. So you're going to have to check that out too at some point. It's pretty cool to be part of the big NBC picture now and be included, especially with the Sharks in the playoffs. Timo's going to be a key, I believe that, in this series. New bobblehead next year, Brody pulling off a part of Doc Brown's beard. Covering the A's and Sharks playoffs. You got it. I liked that shirt that we saw the other night. That young lady was wearing. It was tremendous. I talked to her. I responded to her on Instagram. She found me and she found the picture, but it was Randy and Bakes and Brett and Dan and Brody. What's the other guy's name? Oh, and Curtis. Forgot. Sorry. Anyway. But yeah, we're all stoked. Happy to be a part of this. Best time of the year. Switch the music bed to a lullaby. I don't have one of those on hand. So actually with that, I do want to say thank you guys so much for watching. I'm going to sign off now. We'll continue the conversation another time, maybe on Twitter. I'd like to do more of these after games. We'll just see how the schedule goes. We'll see how my days and off time go. All right? I appreciate you guys, and we will talk soon. Peace. Oh, yeah. Hey, one more thing. If you're not subscribing to the channel, why does that sound quiet? If you're not subscribing to the channel already, that'd be great if you could. I really appreciate that. Trying to grow this thing and have you coming back for more. So I don't know the whole speech. Thumbs up thing down there, the bell, do the bell, whatever. But just subscribe. That'd be the best thing. All right. Now I'm done. Thank you.